The central fact remains that in the operating system market and the applications market, where Microsoft has a monopoly, their market share has increased consistently since the day this trial began. They are currently over 95% market share in both of those markets.
It's hard to imagine it today, but at the end of the 20th century, Microsoft's co-founder Bill Gates was the most polarizing figure in American business. Due to his aggressive business practices and almost autistic style, he had a target painted on his back. But in the last 2 decades, Bill Gates has become a sort of national hero. It's almost a sin not to like the man. And that's thanks in large part to the work that he and his wife, Melinda, have done in the developing world. In this video, I'd like to explore the Gates philanthropic philosophy and the impact it's had on global public health. Very early on in his life, Gates knew he wanted to give his money away.
Doesn't really change my life, and it's more a thing that when I get very old, I'll just have a lot of money to give away.
By the mid-90s, Gates was interested in the growing overpopulation problem. He worried that humans' demand for resources would soon outstrip its ability to produce them. So when his wife Melinda suggested that he try to solve public health problems in the developing world, he was initially opposed. He thought that'd exasperate the problem further. Melinda, who had studied the problem more in depth, told him that in fact improving public health would reduce population growth. Soon afterwards, the couple began reaching out to scientists for advice on how to donate their money. One of the experts Gates spoke with, William Fege, a former director of the CDC, gave him a list of 82 books. Fege was skeptical, thinking at the time, here's another ultra-rich egoist that thinks he can save the world. Next time he saw him, he asked how he was doing on the books, and Gates responded, I've been so busy, I've only gotten through 17 of them. One of those books was the 329-page 1993 World Development Report, a document that would change the course of Gates' life. 2 things stood out to Gates in that report. First, that only 10% of the money spent in public health is used for research on diseases that affect 90% of the world's population, the so-called 90-10 biomedical research gap. This struck Gates as both inefficient and unjust. The second was a recent innovation in public health economics that was introduced to the scientific community in that report, the concept of disability-adjusted life years, or DALYS. DALYS are used to combine mortality and morbidity into one common metric. This metric helps health officials decide between solving a disease that, for example, makes elderly people blind, as opposed to one that kills people in their adolescence. The equation is pretty simple. Mortality is defined as the life expectancy of an individual minus the age of death that person dies of a disease. Morbidity is defined by multiplying the years of life someone lives with the disease times a predefined disability weight. This arguably imperfect system gives society a metric to optimize for. And for Gates, a quant and numbers geek, this was beautiful. On a trip to Africa, Bill and Melinda decided that they would make it their foundation's mission to solve public health problems in the developing world. By the end of the 90s, they began investing hundreds of millions of dollars and quickly became the largest donors in their field. In order to understand Gates' philanthropic work, you have to understand how he built products at Microsoft. The word many use to describe his style is architect. Gates is a systems thinker. So when he and Melinda ventured into philanthropy, he thought deeply about the global public health system. Through conversations with people in the private sector and public sector, he deconstructed the system and broke it down into parties and their interests. Over the next decade, the Gates Foundation developed a push and pull strategy, where they would push new innovations through grants that would fund scientific research that would otherwise not happen, and pull investment from the pharmaceutical companies by promising that if the company developed a vaccine, they would buy enough to make it profitable. One of the most interesting things that I learned during my research was the fact that prior to the Gates Foundation's work, there was very little conversation in the West about public health issues in the developing world. Many of the academic papers I read for this video stated their belief that Gates' biggest impact has been the conversation he's inspired. In 2003, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Gates announced the grand challenges in global health. The idea, inspired by the 23 unsolvable problems presented at the International Congress of Mathematics in Paris, France in 1900, was to align the world's scientists and public health experts towards the most important problems. To define those problems, Gates engaged over 1,000 scientists to build a consensus. Because Gates is at times the richest man in the world, the media covers anything he says. At Davos, he got the world's media to spread his message. Diseases are killing millions of Africans, and we can fix that. Again, this is Gates taking a look at a system, in this case worldwide media, and figuring out how to leverage it to his advantage. What's most amazing about the Gates Foundation is the sheer scale of its impact, though. First, there's the size of the foundation. At a total endowment of $44 billion, it's 4 times larger than the next largest foundation in the world. In the last 10 years, the Gates Foundation has been responsible for a staggering 83% of funding by private organizations to AIDS research. In malaria research, they've contributed 25% of total funding. And it seems to be working. Since 2005, both AIDS and malaria-related deaths have fallen dramatically. But in my opinion, when people look back 100 years from now, they won't look at these numbers. They'll see a man who inspired a humanitarian and philanthropic revolution, a man who made giving away the majority of one's wealth before death the status quo. That, or a goofy DJ.
Check it out.
I like this.
To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, allow me to lace.